trying to get, we knew we wanted to be somewhere on the cold river that night. And I think we got to finally, conditions were much colder that day. We were breaking trail, and we finally got to Uluska lean-to, which ironically was the same lean-to we had spent with Bethany like 3 months earlier. So we were feeling really good at that point. But it continued to get colder and colder. And that night it was cold, and it was blowing, and it was just, with our sleeping bags so wet. And I knew that when we got there and we got everything going, all of a sudden my stove, sometimes water spits over the top of your pot, or you're melting it and it spits down onto the burner. For whatever reason, it stopped the stove and I couldn't get it to light again. And so you're cold, it's dark at this point, and my stove's not working. So I had to take this whole thing. I don't even have a Leatherman with me. So I had to use the pot holder to unscrew the little nozzle, or the little jet for the XGK. Took the whole thing apart, pulled the cable out, and cleaned the little nozzle and put it back together. Still didn't work. Did it again, and this time then it just fired up. And I'm telling you, the sound of that stove firing up and knowing we were going to have a hot dinner and hot water bottles for that night was so exciting. It was just, because that night, I believe temperature went down to 5 below, and I bet the wind chills were 20 below zero. And we were in an exposed lean-to, and with wet sleeping bags. And the fact of the matter is we were getting very close at this point to how much food we had left and fuel as well. So,
yeah, I can imagine that was an exciting moment when that fired up, and you're like, a major sigh of relief at that moment when it finally lit, and that would therefore set off, okay, the meal, the water, the whole thing.
Yeah, all of this stuff. I mean, our batteries and our headlamps. I didn't bring any spare batteries. I read about how long they should last, and they lasted, but they were getting close and everything else. So, Henry, do you have anything to add?
No, not for day 7.
Okay.
All right. So you guys are at Uluska, which is actually one of my favorite lean-tos on the whole trail. I just like that camping area. That whole spot is pretty neat. So day 7 in the books, you guys had your hot meal, you had your water, things are moving, and you're about to start day 8, the final day. Now, when you started day 8, when you woke up at Uluska, did you know, okay, we're pushing it to Lake Placid, or were you still playing it by ear at this point?
No, we definitely had our sights set on Placid. When my dad had talked to Bethany on day 6, I believe, he had told her that we were going to be out by 6:30, or maybe it was 5:30 on the 15th. So he'd given us a little deadline. So we knew that we didn't have to be there, but that's exactly what we were going for.
Yeah, you were ready to be there, I would imagine.
Yes.
Cool.
And so for day 8, we started at around 8:15, and we knew that this was just going to be the final push out, but it was still going to be a long day. We had about 20 miles to go, and it was cold in the morning. It was very cold. I was hiking in everything I had, and I bundled up. I was wearing a buff over my nose and cheeks just to protect my frostbite for much of the day, just because it was really quite cold. And it did begin to warm up slowly throughout the day. And with hard-packed snow conditions for the day, we were able to do fast travel, but we still had snowshoes for most of the day. And as my dad was saying, the ski trail is getting more and more difficult to follow just because at this point the skiers had probably passed through there a week or 2 weeks before we were following it. So we were pretty much trail finding in a lot of different spots, but we were able to pretty much get the gist of following the trail. I remember in one time my dad had me go and break and follow trail, and I was able to follow it for a bit, and then it got to a slope that there were no trees and the sun had melted out a lot of the trail. So I ended up doing a loop-de-loop, which must have looked funny following because I'd gone down the hill, then up the hill, back over, and then I found the trail. And anyway, we were able to make pretty good time, and it felt good knowing it was the last day, and we knew we were going to sleep in a bed that night. But nonetheless, it was a long and difficult day. We just felt like we just kept going and kept going. And we were kind of both, I think, ready to get out. And we knew it was the final stretch, but it was also just like, it didn't quite feel like a victory lap quite yet. But as we neared the Placid, the trail became more and more packed down, and we could recognize someone had been probably out that day walking with their dog on what was just like a day trip, just winter hiking with their dog. So we knew we had to be at most like 2 miles from the trailhead at Placid, and that just was huge because at that point, you know, you're doing it.
Sure.
And you're getting so close. And then we reached the trailhead, and we knew we had like 1.5 miles left on the road, but that just felt like a victory lap, really, because it was just road hiking. We were making great time, and we were in a great mood.
And you know, a hot pizza is not far from you at that moment. So that's exciting. Yeah, and it's at that part of the trail too. I hiked it last year in the winter as well. In particular, I found from Duck Hole to Moose Pond, that kind of stretch on that final day for you, I found to be, I mean, when we did it there, nobody had been there in forever. There was no sign of any sort of trail. It was quite a situation trying to navigate that area. But at that point in your guys' experience being the end of the road, and you did a much longer day too that day. I can imagine that was probably tough, but thank God that you had some easier moments as the trail started to reveal itself to you. But then you guys made it. That's absolutely incredible. So 7 days, 9 hours, start to finish. That's quite the accomplishment. Congratulations to both of you. Now we've been on this for, I've kept you guys for quite some time, so I'll just wrap this up real quick with one question to both of you. I always ask these final questions to people, and I'm just going to stick with this one question, especially with, Tim, you've been everywhere, all over the world. You've been to the top of the world. In your mind, what makes the Adirondacks a unique place in particular?
Yeah, well, so what makes them, for me, it's a great training ground because basically you have cold temperatures. It tends to be damp and short days and trails that aren't broken. And some of the trails or peaks are hard to get to. And so if you can maintain and have, it teaches you amazing winter camping skills. If you can maintain out in the Adirondacks for a week in the middle of winter, you totally have the skills to go to Everest or Denali or other areas in the world. And especially during COVID and everything else, to do this, this is a mini expedition that was only an hour from our house. I've always wanted to do the Placid Trail and to be able to just, it's right in our backyard. And I've always been off doing something else. Oh, I'll get to it. And this was the perfect opportunity not only to do the trail, but also train Henry and get and see a large part of the Adirondacks that I hadn't seen. So to be able to do all that just in the Adirondacks was great for me.
That's absolutely amazing. Again, congratulations to both of you for setting the FKT and, more importantly, just finishing the trail. That's quite the accomplishment. But we're going to wrap up this very exciting winter Thruhike NPT adventure here on the 46 of 46 podcast. And as someone with a real soft spot for the Northville-Placid Trail, especially regarding people who have experienced that trail in the winter as well, I was really looking forward to hearing this story, and it did not disappoint. And if you're like me and you learn better by speaking to someone and want some extra help planning your high peaks or your Northville-Placid Trail journey with someone who has spent a lot of time on these ADK trails, check out my High Peaks coaching service via shared air at 46of46.com. And if you want to support the show and pick up some 46 of 46 hats or shirts, check out 46of46store.com. I'd greatly appreciate the support. Thanks again to Tim and Henry for sharing your story, and thanks to all of you for listening to this summit session. Check back on Fridays for new mountains, new stories, new guests, and new episodes here on the 46 of 46 podcast. Remember to always leave no trace, do the rock walk, and if you carry it in, carry it out. See you on the trails, everybody.
Hey 46 of 46 listeners, this is Katie.
And Bethany.
You may remember us from episode 73 where we went through our story becoming the first women to complete an unsupported thru-hike of the 46 high peaks.
Well, we're currently working on a new project, Rock the 46.
Are you a climber looking for a challenge to get ready for the spring climbing season? Are you a hiker trying to avoid the trails during shoulder season? Or are you just looking for something fun and safe to do during a global pandemic?
Well, check out Rock the 46, an awareness and community outreach event hosted by Rock Sport in Queensbury, New York, from April 10th to May 2nd. We are raising money for Adirondack Climbers Coalition, and there is an awesome challenge to climb every route in the gym. All 46 ropes at Rock Sport is $25 for adult, $20 for youth. Regular gym fees apply. And all participants receive a really awesome shirt. There will be prizes, training tips from rock climbing pros, music, and presentations from local climbing and hiking rock stars, including Katie and I.
B and I are going to accept the challenge to climb all 46 at Rock the 46. Will you?
Yeah!
So there you are, deep in the backcountry, waking up in your tent to the sound of loons on the water and birds in the trees just after sunrise. You had an okay night's sleep, not great, but not terrible. It's time to hit the trail. But first things first, coffee. And since you're camping, you need it to be quick and convenient. Well, Recess Coffee has you covered with their new Campfire Blend Steeped Packs. Steepable coffee packs, easy to carry in, easy to carry out. Pick up a carton of 10 or individual packs before your next camping trip. For 10% off your order of steeped packs or 12-ounce whole bean bags, use the promo code RECESS46. That's RECESS 46 at recesscoffee.com.